Okay, I'd like to call the May 28th Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6:30. Mr. Pinio, do we have need for a non-public session?
We have one item, Madam Chairperson, under reputation.
Okay, one on litigation. All right. We have one item on today's agenda. It's the Cape Park fence. I got a call from Mr. Pinio Thursday afternoon and felt that there was a need to get some of the information out and get an agreement here. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim, and kind of lay out what you got, and we'll move on from there.
Sure. Previously, the Board of Selectmen had requested that we secure pricing to have a fence installed at the Cape Park in the area of the 2 propane tanks, which we have an agreement with Mr. Ford, who is here this evening. We secured the pricing for that fence installation. From that point, we brought it to the board. We secured approval from the board to move forward with the agreement in lieu of a landscaping plan. As it moved forward, I was on vacation. Upon my return from vacation, I had correspondence from Mr. Ford, who wanted to meet with me regarding the fence. I met with Mr. Ford last week and his associate. At that meeting, they had some items that they wanted to discuss. Primarily, their concern is how did it get to them having to pay for the fence. Additionally, I believe they have some alternative concepts that they may want the board to consider instead of fencing. So as a result of that information, and where the board is the ones who make decisions on town land, I reached out to the chair, and from that point we were able to get a meeting scheduled for this evening to hopefully get this topic addressed and put behind us. That kind of summarizes why we're here and how we got here.
Okay, and does somebody, Peter or Alex, somebody want to present what you would like to have us consider tonight?
Well, I guess it's just more of recapping what got us to this point. About 2 years ago, we met and the Board of Selectmen agreed to give us an easement to put those 2 banks of tanks for the 4 restaurants that are operating there or will be operating soon. And part of that agreement stipulated that we would submit and pay for a landscaping plan to hide the 4 tanks that are partially underneath the Downtown Grill's deck. So that was approved, and that was just about 2 years ago. We did not do any construction for the first year. Obviously, that was in the beginning of the summer season. And about a year ago, we put the deck on the back of the Wicked Loon, which required us to move the propane tanks partially under our deck, but also partially on Cape Park land inside the easement. So from that point on, we were planning on doing the landscaping. And I went back through my records, and I had emailed, starting in May, 3 different times asking if we could put the landscaping in. And I got a response back from several various people, no, because there were other issues that were being determined. One, the first issue had to do with those granite pillars that goes back to the original meeting. There was some question about whether those were going to stay or be removed. And then I believe the second one had to do with the ramp that was going in. I was told to wait for that. And then the third time that I emailed and said, I really want to get this landscaping done, I was told to wait because the selectmen were now considering putting in a fence. And that was just about around sometime in the last summer, and then of course winter. You can't do anything in winter, and now we're here at this point. And I was ready to reopen the idea of getting that landscaping done, and then I found out that there was a request from the Board of Selectmen to meet with my associate Alex and discuss the possibility of where a fence would go to hide those 4 tanks. And I believe Alex met with a couple of members of the board, and there was a discussion about putting them there, and that there were going to be some quotes obtained. And as far as my knowledge, that was probably a month or so ago. That was the last that I heard about it. I assumed that there was some deliberations about a fence. There was some issue with a vendor that decided not to move forward. And then I was told, I received a letter saying that I was responsible for paying for the fence and for putting in landscaping. So I didn't understand the jump from my understanding that I would install and pay for the landscaping to cover those 4 tanks to being told I had to put in what is almost a $6,000 fence and then pay for the landscaping to hide the fence. I don't know if, my personal opinion, I don't know if the fence is going to be the best, the least impactful way to hide those 4 tanks. We had discussed a couple of other options, which would involve putting a small bulkhead there, just with a hatch on it, that would look very similar to the side of the deck. You blend in perfectly, and then we would landscape behind it. It would have a much smaller impact than a fence would, and it would completely hide the tanks 100%. And again, it would just have a hatch. You see some of those around town that they put propane tanks in. Ours would be, though, very decorative, and it would look like it looked just like it would be part of the deck. So that's really where we are. I'm just here to try to understand what the next step forward is and discuss it with the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, Peter, could you get us copies of those emails? I haven't received any of those emails that you talked about tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, because that lays out a pattern that I haven't seen, so that would be helpful for us.
Sure. Most of those emails were with, I believe, Christine Collins, who was the, or is, I'm not sure, she's the head of the Parks and Rec,
yeah.
Maybe. I was told at one point, when I first asked, I'd like to move forward, who do I talk to do this, I was told to contact her. And then we went back and forth over probably what was last summer, in which she put forth, these emails that or correspondence. A couple of them were email, a couple of them were phone calls, and I did meet her a couple of times on site in the 3 months or 4 month period of the summertime. And that was, again, the last I had heard about this until we jumped to a month ago or so.
So
Sure, I'll send you the ones in which I said I'd like to get this done, and then being told to not to just wait. So I do have a couple of those.
And I just want to clarify one thing. There were 2 70-square-foot plots of land we leased to you. Each of them had 4 propane tanks, one by the deck, the other one that back closer to Winnie Paw.
That is correct, and
Okay.
and that back bank of tanks, maybe in the wintertime you can see them, but I believe that you can't even see those tanks with that. It's very dense landscaping on the side of the downtown grill between Cape Park. And personally, I think a fence would be more disruptive than that nice landscaping there. My understanding was we just were going to landscape the ones that were very visible to the public, but either way is fine with me. But there is a lot of landscaping in front of those tanks.
Yeah, and I will, somebody else wants to talk, but they went from green to white, and then they, on the side of the building, had red and yellow, and that's, everybody could see when the foliage is out. So it went from something that wasn't noticeable to something was.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
We changed vendors,
Yeah.
and they were green, and I didn't even think that they were white, but certainly those can be painted to whatever color would make them
I think it's
least
more
visible.
the stuff that's up on the building. It's up higher, it's colored. I think it's color-coded for some reason by the installer.
Okay.
I heard somebody who wanted to make a comment. Paul?
Peter, I'm Paul O'Brien. Nice to meet you.
You too.
I was going to ask about those emails as well, but setting those aside, no landscape plan by you was developed?
No, it was. It was developed. I submitted it several times to Christine Collins. I submitted it at the very beginning when we met with the board and we asked for the easement. I submitted a landscaping plan. And then at that time, actually, it was Brian brought up about the granite pillars that kind of, they went into the landscaping. It really wasn't attractive. They had these chains on them, and there was a question about whether those were going to stay or not. My landscaping plan had those in it, so the landscaping plan was tabled at that time until a decision was made by the board about what to do with those granite pillars.
And I'm catching up. Tabled by whom?
By the Board of Selectmen.
We tabled his landscaping plan?
I don't recall, I don't see it in any of our minutes that we did. As I recall, the landscaping plan came in with no scale. It was just on a graph paper, little design swirls. And from that landscaping plan, I got from Christine, from Belknap Landscaping, a cost estimate between $7,000 $6,700 to $8,100. And that's the last thing I
Is
have.
that the landscaping plan that you provided, or we priced out?
Christine Collins reached out to me and said that the Board of Selectmen looked at the landscaping plan and asked for one that had dimensions on it. And my contractor at the time, according to him, he resubmitted that plan with dimensions. And that was the end of last June.
So
And that
like,
was-
I can just get the fact pattern. You believe you submitted a landscaping plan. Some people might argue that it was a rough sketch. That landscaping plan was tabled by someone at the board. That landscaping plan, rough sketch, was then priced out by the town of Wolfeboro for you?
The last thing that I knew, a landscaping plan was submitted to the Board of Selectmen or to the town, Christine Collins, that had dimensions on it. Any of this other thing is news to me. I
Okay.
had no idea about any costing or any landscaper. I had not heard a word about this from
So
that point.
is it customary to submit a plan and not know what you're going to pay for it?
Well, until the plan is approved by the Board of Selectmen, there really wouldn't be any point in
Okay.
submitting.
All right, thank you.
Jim, did you ever get a dimensional plan? The plan that I have with the estimate, it has no dimensions on it. It has a little bit more idea in terms of the, what kind of bushes you might put in. But it has no scale. It's the one we have. So that's all I have. If there's another one.
There is.
Then.
There is. But
Jim,
again,
I-
this is all new to me. I'm not necessarily prepared to provide documents to you, but if you have a list of things that you want, I can certainly get them. But
Well, what I wanted to make sure is we had the documents, all of us, we gave this all to the board so that we were talking about what we as a Board of Selectmen had. And that's what I'm telling you is what I have. And I don't have in my packet and any of the information I have another plan. I think at some point we did send this over to Christine to work on a landscaping plan, but as I recall, the propane tanks had to be moved in order for you to put the footings in for your second floor deck.
that is correct.
Okay, and because of that, the landscaping was stopped, because
Okay.
we didn't want to put it in, take it out. And so we said, okay, we understand that was reasonable for you, for us, made no sense to do something. So that's the last thing I
Okay.
remember in terms of holding something up, was in relationship to that. Any other, Brian?
Yeah, so I wanted to correct one thing. The fence isn't $8,000, the fence is only $3,600. So it's half the price of what the landscaping, so the last plan that you sent went to Christine Collins, I believe. She priced it out with Belknap Landscaping, and they said, because you need substantially big plants, they're expensive. When you get a 6-foot shrub, they're expensive. So it came out a lot. I had been asking, could we do a fence with a minimum amount of plantings in front of it? A little bed in front, a couple of flowers, a couple hanging baskets. That's cheap money. And I thought that the fence would, A, cover things better because it could go up high, would be half the price of the landscaping, and would give us a more permanent solution. Also would give better access to the tanks because, let me see, bushes grow, and then they become big, and then they infiltrate in behind, and it would make it, so from the beginning, I was hoping for a fence that has some, minimal landscaping to start with in front of it to make it look aesthetically pleasing. And thought that that could be done for less money than $8,000 worth of landscaping, that if you need work done on your tanks, now you're ripping bushes out of the way or knocking them down or damaging them, putting new tanks in. So
So, again, a lot of this is new information for me,
Yep.
and you're doing a fantastic job of getting me to buy the fence, because I had no idea about the landscaping cost, because I never even knew if the landscaping plan was approved or not. But,
Yep.
for a $3,600 fence
Well,
versus the other one.
can I correct, it's $3,838.
Okay.
I don't want to
All
give
right, now
you
we're
the
going
wrong
back the other
information.
way.
There we are.
3,800 still, yeah.
Well,
So, yeah,
but that is, so that's
Yeah.
what, let me go back to why we made the change, was once we saw the second bank. For a while, we thought we were just going to have to cover the first bank, and then we looked at the second bank. Alex was here when we started talking about moving from landscaping to fence, and he met with us. We talked to different vendors on the fence. So that's how we kind of moved.
All right.
We held up because of the footings, then we looked and we had new tanks, different colors, higher up, and it moved us towards a fence. Brian has been an advocate for a fence, and he convinced the rest of us with the two that that's what.
And we did choose the fence company that is reputable, that was the least expensive.
Okay. So based on all that information, so we can move this forward, I would agree to pay for the fence for $3,863.
$38.
Okay.
That's what the quote is.
I would agree to
and
do
it's-
that, and that would meet the requirements of the, the legal easement that we have, in which I have to do something to screen the tanks. And I will paint the tanks green too, if you want. I don't know if, does that?
It's just behind, it just will
blocks
have the
it,
fence.
okay.
That's what we were trying to do, is block, so whether winter or summer, that it was covered, and that was the one area.
Yeah, so based on all that information, I think that's a very fair solution to both parties, if that's solve the problem.
Any other Board of Selectmen? We have a couple of us who always like to talk. Is there somebody else that wants to make any comment? There's no public comment at this time, no. And I'll gather at the end, but we never have public comment during, unless the board, do we want to take public comment, or do we want to hold it up to the end?
I'm always open to public comment.
Other board members, I would prefer it at the end, that we've kind of worked out our issues.
Yeah, I agree. I think, because this is really the main thing on our docket tonight, so when we get done with this, it would be at public input anyway, so it would be right towards the end of our discussion to come up and make comments or ask questions and stuff, so.
Paul, where
Yeah,
are
I'm
you?
kind of in the same space. I think, I'm not sure we're done here yet. Do we have other things we need to talk about?
I'm trying to get that,
So I
and she was
think
just to
public
ask.
comment should come maybe at the
Okay.
end, once we get our other
Dave,
business
where are
done.
you? When we're done. When we're done, we have a time for, and we will get to that. Board members, any other questions and concerns you want for Peter Ford?
I'll just kind of confirm the, comments are made, because went down with Linda there, and we met with Alex down there that day with the first fence company. And as Linda explained, that second, the bank further up, the one up alongside the downtown grill, is the one where they added the piping above it when you apparently changed vendors, you just explained, and they kind of color-coded their pipes there, which are about 2 feet above the top of the tank, so that kind of really caught our eyes and stuff when you're staying in the park. It just, kind of glares right out at you there. So I think that's why we kind of talked about, adding, putting the fence in that section up there also. And I believe you weren't familiar with the fence topic there. We were talking about I think it's going to be a wooden fence, cedar
I think
wooden fence. It would look good.
I think I may even have a
Stuff, so-
picture.
That's kind of where we're at right now, so I'm glad we were able to straighten out the prices for you to, you kind of, we're hearing, different numbers and stuff like that floating around, so be able to clarify that. Hopefully that helps. So that
You'd
was
like
really about it.
Pictures, those are the ones, I think we're doing one like this. Okay? Yes, you may. I can get another one. Any other comments about the fencing? Okay, the other thing we have is the trash, and I went back, and it is my understanding, based on the documents I find, that the planning board gave you approval for the fence to go around your deck, the sides, and the one on the front is a kind of like a curtain. shower curtain that can go up and down. Our only concern is during the day, the trash cans coming out on the town property to fill them up. And I was wondering whether you would be willing to give us a trash plan so we have an understanding of how you're going to have the trash from that building addressed.
I would be happy to. I know that we did submit a trash plan to the planning board as part of our approval for the second level of the deck. And at that time, it was submitted by Tony Fallon, our architect, and my understanding was it was approved, and I can get a copy of the trash plan from Tony, and I'll submit it to the Board of Selectmen. And he did put a movable curtain in front of it. Personally, I know it's probably not up to the Board of Selectmen, but I had thought, I still think maybe like a barn door type of thing that you just slide one side over and one side back. That way the trash cans cannot come out. I'm a little concerned about the curtain that, you know, it might allow it to bend out a little bit or something. But a rigid one that matches the rest of it, which is stained cedar, you know, slats like you see everywhere, which you see underneath the Wicked Loon deck, which I think look really nice. We would have a consistent look all the way around and nobody would even know. You just slide it, put the trash in, slide it back, and it would be, it would take care of that problem. But we are definitely, you know, in the summertime, it's challenging from a standpoint that there are, you know, the Downtown Grill is a large establishment using that trash, but we do have a pretty robust trash plan. But our biggest challenge is the fact that just like the town deals with, you put a trash container out, you become an extension of the town dump. And we have that same challenge where people see a trash container or they see any place to throw their trash and they just throw it there. So we try to be very vigilant, but a lot of times the stuff that gets thrown there does not come from our restaurant. But I'll be happy to submit the copy of the trash plan to you.
And I think that will kind of alleviate some of our issues, and I happen to like your plan of a more solid that goes back and forth, and I think it would contain it more. I will note that I've driven down a number of times, and I would say that it has been looking very neat and tidy over the last month.
Thank you.
So thank you for that.
We're really trying.
Now,
Yeah.
Linda, can he change from a curtain to a barn door without going back to planning board, or does he have to go back to planning board?
I think I would go back to, we don't have any say over that.
Understood,
You know, once it comes out onto our land, we have a say. This is completely the planning board. I just happen to like your suggestion better. I did not like the shower curtain type of setup there. So, and I think this would block it all off. It would look the
Yes.
same, and we wouldn't see trash. And I think that's what at least I hear from the public is what they don't want to see.
Neither do we. Neither do
Okay.
I. I mean, the whole goal here is to make that area of the town docks look nicer than they looked, you know, 5 years ago with the businesses that were there. And I think even though it's been a challenging road for us, like any large construction project is in the town of Wolfeboro, I think we're very close to the end. And I certainly hope that the Board of Selectmen, I appreciate you guys working with us over this 2 years that these two projects have been in place. But I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be a much nicer product than there was there before. I'll let the result stand for itself. The road is sometimes bumpy, but I think we're getting very close to the finish line. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Okay.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Paul.
No.
I was going to kind of come all the way
Oh,
around.
I'll wait.
Okay. Dave, do you have any comments or concerns or questions?
My only concerns with the fence,
And you're satisfied? Brad?
Yeah, I think I like that idea also, like Peter said too, of thinking about changing over the screening for the trash to more of a solid, you know, wooden type structure. I like that idea. I think it would look better for the, you know, everybody's down in the area there looking back at the building, so I would be very supportive of that.
Brian?
Jim, is June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, what's the date that the fence construction is scheduled to begin?
I think it's June 1st, I believe.
Okay, did anybody tell you that? June 1st.
That's good. That's fine.
So you have to wait a couple of days.
Paul?
Thanks for your accommodation. I don't think there's any disagreement on both parties that we want to make the downtown docks look really nice. and it's great to know that you're supportive of that. The question that I was, and I don't know how you fix this, I'm just putting it out there. I mean, as you sit around in the different shops, trash is being moved in and out of businesses all the time. The question for you folks is the frequency of moving trash into those receptacles during the business day. And I don't know how you do this, and I don't know how you consider it, but moving trash frequently into those receptacles during the business day can appear to be disruptive. And I don't think we can tell you how many times a day you should open the trash cans or how many times a day you should have them cleared, but give some consideration to moderating the frequency of bringing trash out there so that it doesn't become disruptive, to people who are sitting there trying to grab a bite to eat on your deck, someone who's trying to get out of a car, or somebody who's at Kate Park trying to watch a concert.
Or walking into, because that.
Or walking in, you know what I mean? Just, you're in a everybody's in a high traffic area, whether you're on, Railroad Avenue or whether you're on Main Street. It's all high traffic area. But just, I ask you to have your team consider the frequency of moving trash in and out of those receptacles. That might be a helpful thing to do. Okay? Sure.
Absolutely. That's absolutely.
Sure.
Yes,
Actually, answering the question is a lot better than trying to get emails.
That is part of our trash plan. So if you look at Marker 21, who is on the second floor, part of their trash plan is that they hold their trash inside. Our trash gets picked up every day from the back of the building in the early morning, and part of the plan is that like Marker 21 holds it inside of their restaurant until nighttime, and then they bring it out, as late as they can, and then it gets picked up very first thing or very early in the morning. And that's the same type of procedure that we're trying to follow. Maybe 1 or 2 times a day, somebody will have to come out for something that it just can't stay in the restaurant. It's better off being outside. But for the most part, we try to hold the trash in as long as we possibly can until nighttime, and then bring it all out at one time, and then put all the cans away to prevent exactly what you're saying, which is just people coming and going and stuff. And every time we open up the trash can, somebody sees us and they realize there's a trash dumpster there. It's like our bathrooms every time. It's another town bathroom. But that is part of our trash plan.
Okay.
Okay, and it'll be nice to get that, and I will make sure the board gets your trash plan. Okay, public comment.
I had one more.
Oh, you did, sorry.
Yeah. Do you have any concern, or do you, the location of the fence with regards to the tanks, should they be 6 inches away, a foot away, a foot and a half away? Does the propane company care? Do you need a distance for access? We don't want it to be a large area back there for, kids to get behind and fool around and stuff like that. Do you think that you need some input in your propane company needs some input into the location of it exactly?
Yes, they do. And I think that my understanding is they need about 2 feet of space between the tank and the fence in order to go in and just hook up the two or three of the tanks are accessible right from the front of it.
Yep.
But the last 4th tank in, they need to walk in and hook it up. Okay. But I will verify that fact before we put the fence in, and I will get back to you.
And I believe the maintenance, Jim Aponis from Park and Rec talked to the companies, but let's get that confirmed. So we're all in agreement on what's there. But he did have them and talk to them before we met with the fence companies.
So we want Mr. Ford to get back to Mr. Aponis.
Yeah, we need to communicate.
We don't need
Jim
Mr.
needs
Ford
to
to
set
call
up the
anybody else.
communication.
We don't need him to call anybody else, just Jim Aponis.
And
I will
Jim
take care of that tomorrow.
talk to Jim Aponis,
thank
and
you.
he needs to talk with Peter and the companies to make sure we're all in agreement before anything gets installed. Now, are any other comments, or can I go to public comment?
Public comment.
Public comment.
Hi, I'm Sabette Stroman. I've been following this for a couple of years. You've seen me up here before, I think, commenting about this. And I'm kind of watching again with dismay. And I do hope this means something is finally happening. I don't know quite where to start. Let me just start with this. I'm disappointed we are not doing really nice big shrubs. I don't know why we care about how much Mr. Ford spends. He's not spending much. You lent. The lease is not a very expensive lease at all. And in fact, it's kind of a laughingly low amount of money to lease that land to him every year for his tanks. He certainly has the means to afford really nice big shrubs that look great in the park. But it sounds like you've decided on a fence. I would ask that if you do put up a fence, you do make sure that it is stained. I have a picture of his deck. Stain it the same color as his deck so that it kind of blends a little bit better. I have this, when you talk about a cedar deck, a cedar fence, I have this image of raw cedar getting put up, and I'm worried about that. I'm worried about hanging plants that you mentioned because nobody's going to water them, and we'll just have a bunch of dead plants hanging on a fence. And so if you are going to do the fence, please at least have it stained and matched to his deck. And also, please still have him put some shrubs in front of it to soften it. He has the means to do anything you want him to do. And I don't understand why we are not asking him. He has gotten so much from the town, and I don't understand why we don't have the expectation that he give back equally. Do you have a question for me? Let me see if there's anything else I want to say now that I'm on a roll. Well, I know what I wanted to say. So I've heard in the last 2 years a lot of, we're going to have a landscape, the plans, this is going to happen by a certain date. And you were frustrated too. I know that. Here's what I would suggest. If you were putting a fence in, if you're actually putting a fence in now, and he is talking about his trash plan. Well, I've seen trash come and go at all hours of the day, so I'm not quite sure about, I hope this is a new trash plan. His lease is up in what, July for the land? You have a wonderful opportunity here to watch what happens in the month of June, see what behavior changes, see if he holds firm to getting plants in when he's supposed to, if that's his responsibility. It sounds like you guys have taken on the fence, which again is not something I understand. It should have been in his bailiwick. But you have the month of June to watch him before you sign a lease with him again and see, how is the trash thing working out? We do not have to renew that lease. That money is funding next to nothing in the town of Wolfeboro. What is it? How much is it a month? It's really low.
It is $2,000 a year, and it's based on the same ratio that we rent out the half a dock to the jet ski company. That's how we came up with it.
Okay.
We're being consistent and equal to everyone.
Well, it's a very low amount of rent, and I think you should at least watch it carefully the month of June, and do not re-sign the lease until we see what we want to see for the citizens down by the dock. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else in the audience would like to give any public input? No? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. We're going to go into non-public.
Oh, yep, we need to make a motion to go non-public. Thank you.
Right.
Do I have that motion?
So move.
Second.
Dave? Yes.
Yes.
I'm yes. You're a yes?
Yes.
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 Okay.